Later, Oscar explained to Adam that he would need to stay in the rented car in case he had to leave the event urgently. Adam didn't mind, saying he'd have time to read a new book. Their conversation was interrupted by Vanessa, who brought Oscar a drink and had a couple of questions. She said she needed a dress for tomorrow evening, and Oscar promised Madam Kenneth would take care of it. Vanessa didn't argue, remembering Madam Kenneth had prepared her outfit last time. Oscar was more interested in whether Vanessa was ready, making clear it was very important. The nanny had prepared well beforehand, memorizing the castle's layout, learning about the workers, and studying rumors and threats online. She was as ready as possible. Oscar asked her to check the hotel's security cameras again before leaving. She promised to do everything and headed out. Adam watched her, puzzled, wondering what had happened between her and Oscar because after Verona, it was as if a Siberian tundra had arisen between them. Oscar asked Adam to stop such speculation but reminded him that he used to like the nanny very much. Oscar assured their relationship was strictly professional and hoped Adam would stop making assumptions. Adam had watched them long enough to boldly object. Mr. Paralan gave him a stern look, like a last warning. Adam whispered that he was on Oscar's side and liked how he treated the nanny. Unlike Anna and Nick, he wouldn't judge. Oscar admitted that in Verona, his mother talked to Vanessa. Adam got scared, realizing what Aunt might have said, but wondered what. Oscar wasn't there and didn't know. Adam understood the boss's worries but promised to see what could be done. Oscar demanded he not do anything without permission, and Adam agreed. Moving a safe distance away, Adam assured Oscar everything would be fine and smiled mysteriously. Meanwhile, Cody didn't understand why he couldn't go. Vanessa explained he'd be safer there, but the boy disagreed, saying Vanessa was his nanny, not his father's. She explained the trip was for safety, and Cody would be guarded by Anna, Nick, Antonio, and all the guards. The boy didn't understand why they couldn't return tomorrow. Vanessa said they returned late and promised to wake him when they did. Cody demanded she promise, otherwise, he wouldn't sleep. Vanessa promised, sealing the promise by linking pinky fingers. Cody calmed down. Meanwhile, in Albuquerque, Simon reported to his boss that the departure would take place tomorrow night as planned. Don knew his nephew would be in the thick of things and that he never listened. Simon suggested it wasn't too late to warn him and notify his people, but Johnny calmly objected. Oscar's fate depended on it, he would either succeed or go down. Either way, it would allow proceeding to the next phase of the plan. Johnny reminded Simon he liked things to go smoothly. The next morning, Mrs. Kenneth's footsteps echoed in the hotel hallway, bringing clothes for Vanessa and Adam. Her visit seemed unexpected, and Adam wondered why she came so early. He saw she brought a dress for Vanessa, who said it still needed adjusting. Adam surprised Mrs. Kenneth by offering help, even though he was only a driver and hardly understood such things. He showed her his wrinkled shirt and said he knew what to do. After some thought, she agreed. Mrs. Kenneth allowed him to care for the dress but warned that if he lost it, she would arrange a showdown. Adam promised to take full responsibility. Soon, the dress was delivered to Vanessa. When she tried it on, the cut surprised her. It was tight and uncomfortable, making it difficult to fight or even move. After Verona, everything had been easier, and Mr. Paralan now treated her like an idol. It was already hard to keep their relationship professional, and now this dress complicated things. Adam went to help Oscar choose an outfit for the event. He advised a tie, but Oscar wondered why he chose that one. Adam asked for trust, but Oscar demanded an explanation. Their conversation was interrupted by Vanessa, who didn't dare enter but poked her head in, asking about the ensemble. Oscar didn't understand at first but stared at her intently. Vanessa realized she had to show herself and crossed the threshold. Oscar's face changed in surprise. He hadn't expected her outfit. It looked unusual, and she didn't look like an accompanying lady, she looked like the deputy head of a mafia clan. Oscar cursed quietly. Vanessa explained that Mrs. Kenneth was usually more modest but worried her status would be close to Oscar's. As they tried to figure out the outfit, Adam quietly rejoiced that everything turned out well. Vanessa nervously said her costume felt out of place. Oscar blushed but said it would fit normally. She noticed his embarrassment but said nothing and agreed with the strange choice. Then she left, and Mr. Paralan began guessing who was behind the outfit. He scolded Adam for going crazy because Vanessa would now be devoured by his eyes. Adam thought everything was fine. He was a little angry Oscar objected so much because he wanted to melt the ice between him and the nanny. He also advised Oscar to keep looking at Vanessa the same way, hoping it might help melt the ice between them. Mr. Paralan tried to object, but Vanessa stopped him before he could finish. She peeked in from behind the door again and said that Cody wanted to say goodbye to his father. Oscar immediately went to see his son. Adam boldly told the nanny she looked mind-blowing and suggested she hold Oscar's arm at the reception. Vanessa thought this was a tactic and figured Madam Kenneth knew what she was doing. Then she went to say goodbye to her little ward and promised they wouldn't be gone long. Mr. Paralan tried to explain to his son they'd be back before he got bored, but suddenly the boy grabbed him by the jacket, pulling him close. Surprised, Oscar fell, and Cody hugged both him and Vanessa as if they were close relatives. Vanessa hadn't expected this either but clearly smelled Oscar's scent at that moment. Their eyes met, and it seemed Mr. Paralan wanted to say something, but he stayed silent. They were interrupted by Anna and Nick, who hoped they hadn't interrupted anything important. Cody told his father to obey Vanessa because she would protect him. The boys were serious. Nick chuckled, and Anna looked worried about Vanessa's outfit. Cody asked Vanessa to stay by his dad's side at all times so nothing would happen to him. Nick laughed again, doubting it would help Oscar's safety. Oscar, tired of the ridicule, headed for the exit. His son reminded him not to forget to bring a gift. Vanessa reassured the boy and promised they'd be back soon. As they finally hit the road, a long silence fell in the cabin. Adam occasionally glanced at the passengers, who avoided each other, but then smiled broadly, trying to lighten the mood. Vanessa thought Adam was paying too much attention to them, so she lifted the glass partition separating the cabin from the driver. She admitted the situation felt strange. Mr. Paralan told her not to pay attention to Adam. Vanessa thought about Paris, where the event was to take place. She hadn't been there since she was a little girl with her parents, when everyone was happy and her father allowed her to enjoy ice cream. She realized those moments were past and would never return, which made her sad. Later, they took a train. There was almost no conversation. Oscar stared at his tablet, and Adam read a book. Suddenly, Madame Cole approached, realizing Mr. Paralan had chosen to travel by train as well. Adam was a bit worried, thinking the boss chose the train specifically for him. The French woman noticed Vanessa's bold outfit and proudly said if she dressed like that 100%, Madame Cole would keep her distance, because if people didn't know about their friendship, they'd underestimate her. Oscar promised to threaten Vanessa occasionally and said he needed to make a strong first impression at the event. Madame Cole agreed this would affect how they were judged and warned him not to disgrace them. Mr. Paralan begged them not to worry, assuring that by evening everyone would know who they were dealing with. Adam added doubts about whether the event was ready for their visit. Vanessa, having only listened so far, agreed it would be even better. Madame Cole, glad of their confidence, was about to leave. That evening, they arrived at a huge building in a rented car and prepared to go inside. Adam coughed casually, but Oscar didn't understand. He told Adam to help Vanessa open the door. The girl tried to open it herself but failed. Oscar reached out with a pen and asked permission to assist her. Outside, Oscar admitted Vanessa looked incredible, while he felt embarrassed. He said he should have complimented her earlier and now felt a little uncomfortable. Vanessa thought such compliments were usually reserved for dates but thanked him anyway. She recalled their tense week and thought maybe Mr. Paralan really didn't know anything and she was imagining things. Looking around the chic building, she hoped the evening would pass pleasantly. Mr. Paralan said they shouldn't wait any longer and offered his hand to Vanessa to enter. Outside, no one was in sight, not guards nor guests. Oscar didn't know why but went with Vanessa to the entrance. Both anticipated the event but were ready for anything. Oscar knocked, and seconds later, shuffling footsteps approached. The door opened to reveal an ancient old woman who immediately recognized Mr. Paralan. It was Grandmother Ivanov. She welcomed them inside and explained they were the last guests, waiting for their northern relatives. She invited them to enjoy the buffet and said they would see each other again at dinner. Vanessa noticed everything was lavishly clean. Oscar confirmed the gang liked to flaunt their riches. The girls spotted the triad members and whispered to Oscar that they were approaching. Mr. Paralan politely greeted Samthern and Alice, who was delighted and couldn't believe Oscar had brought his nanny. She bet on it happening. Oscar explained he was just a man of his word. Alice noted he was the only one present and turned to Vanessa, offering to walk with her. Vanessa hesitated but didn't refuse and followed the woman, who looked meaningfully at Oscar before leaving. At the champagne table, Alice asked Vanessa what she thought of the gathering. Vanessa honestly expected a more businesslike atmosphere but found it rather tame. Alice said cold sandwiches weren't their style but admitted no one forgot about business here. Everyone could have fun and offered Vanessa a drink. The nurse noticed a familiar man she hadn't expected to see on good terms with the triad. It was clear she wouldn't learn all the subtleties online, but here Vanessa could learn much more. She had heard of many attendees and noted it wasn't just bandits but the authoritative elite gathered. Alice asked Vanessa who the handsome man she was watching was. Curious, she asked why a triad girl would want to see Vanessa there. Vanessa modestly said she just wanted to chat with a peer, not gloomy old men. Alice found the old Europeans boring and wanted some variety. Vanessa recalled the triad's roots in the Qing dynasty. Alice agreed but said they were a new generation that didn't share the old school's hardening. They kept up with the times, while others rested on their laurels. Vanessa noticed those laurels were wealthy when she saw Grandmother Ivanov's granddaughters, the gang's princesses. Alice confirmed they were the ball's main beauties and every family dreamed of gaining their trust funds. Vanessa saw the girls received much attention and respect. Alice hinted Vanessa could guess who they were really targeting. Suddenly, one princess approached Oscar. Alice said it was expected. Vanessa understood the girl just wanted company but didn't want to intervene, seeing no threat. Alice agreed, but for Mr. Paralan it might be different, the lady wasn't just any woman. Oscar kept a stone face, uninterested no matter how hard she tried to attract him. Vanessa found it amusing and struggled not to laugh but kept watching, realizing her boss needed help. She apologized to Alice and went to Oscar, advising she save him. As Vanessa left, Alice muttered Vanessa was unlikely to succeed. Madame Cole, talking to someone else, noticed Oscar being bothered by the lady and understood that's what happens when two hungry tigers share a cage. She also saw Vanessa approaching with a menacing look, as if ready to pull the lady's hair. Oscar, seeing Vanessa, asked if she had already checked the perimeter, pretending he hadn't called her. He introduced Vanessa to the lady as one of Grandmother Ivanov's granddaughters named Kia. Vanessa was glad to meet her, but Kia pompously said it was an honor, not a joy, for the guest. She cheekily invited Mr. Paralan to dance, implying he had no choice. He glanced at Vanessa, hoping she would come up with an excuse. She understood without words and immediately said the triad required his presence for an important discussion. Mr. Paralan was mentally relieved he could escape the lady's company. Kia declared he was obliged to dance with her after the triad talk. Oscar said he had already promised to dance with his companion. He took Vanessa's hand, making her uncomfortable but confirming his words. He apologized to the Russian beauty with a guilty smile and said they'd leave in a minute. They went to the other end of the room, Oscar dragging Vanessa's hand as if fleeing danger. He stopped, caught his breath, and thanked her for helping in the unpleasant situation. He hoped Vanessa wouldn't give up dancing with him, and she didn't mind but was confused. Oscar asked what was wrong, thinking nothing was. Vanessa hesitated but said she was ready to support him in any matter, though embarrassed to admit something. She explained that if Oscar attached any meaning to such intimacy, she'd feel uncomfortable. Mr. Paralan didn't understand and waited for her to explain. Vanessa said she didn't want to say it like that but couldn't understand his intentions or some details of his history. She suddenly fell silent, realizing she'd said too much. Oscar pressed for an explanation, not understanding which story. Vanessa admitted she meant his wife. She thought he had been through torture but couldn't take back her words and bowed her head, expecting anger. He just stared silently. Vanessa said Oscar's mother had said something that surprised him greatly. She apologized for bringing it up but said she shouldn't have remembered. Oscar said his mother shouldn't have mentioned such things. Mr. Paralan looked at Vanessa intensely, demanding to know what she had started to say and what his mother revealed. Vanessa knew it was a trap and answered carefully, asking him to forget it, saying this was not the place for such talk. Their conversation was interrupted by Alice, who apparently had been looking for them. She said it was time for dinner and invited them to follow. Soon they sat at the table, but Vanessa couldn't get the last conversation out of her mind. She wasn't supposed to mention his late wife, yet Oscar seemed eager to know what his mother had told her. Vanessa assumed anyone with a deceased spouse would ask, but after Eva Paralan's words, it was different. Oscar seemed to grieve but his mother said it was confusing and hard to watch. Part of Vanessa hoped she had misunderstood, but another part didn't. She remembered how Oscar often looked at her with a special expression. Even now, at the table surrounded by Russian beauties, his gaze was mostly on Vanessa. She knew giving in would ruin everything between them, their working relationship, the trust she had gained, and the Elite Nanny Academy code. She mentally scolded herself for thinking about it and tried to push the thoughts away. After dinner, she decided to apologize but was sure he would soon forget. She mentally thanked Ivanov for the Russian beauties distracting him. Meanwhile, Kia clung to Mr. Paralan like a leech, showering him with compliments about how strong he was, making him look like a true mafioso. Oscar wasn't in the mood and said he wanted to enjoy dinner. Realizing she was being foolish, Kia pushed him away and drank wine, thinking about how to crack this handsome man. After sipping, she felt the aftertaste was strange, followed by unpleasant sensations. Suddenly, her throat tightened. She tried to scream but couldn't, only grabbing her neck as she began to rise. Grandmother Ivanov noticed something was wrong and screamed loudly, worried. Mr. Paralan and Kia's sister stared in shock as Kia's head crashed onto the table. They knew something terrible had happened. Vanessa realized the problem and immediately jumped over the table, knocking the glass Kia was holding out with her foot. By then, Kia was already foaming at the mouth, emitting a last gurgle. Grandmother Ivanov realized her granddaughter had been poisoned and began cursing loudly in Russian. Oscar checked Kia's pulse just in case. But unfortunately, her heart had already stopped beating. He looked at Vanessa, and as their eyes met, they knew without a word that urgent action was needed. Next to her sat a frightened Madame Colt, who had also realized it was poison and was now seized by complete panic that she too could be harmed. The girl from the triad determined the poison was in the wine, meaning everyone who drank would share Katya's fate. Katya's sister immediately rushed to the deceased, unable to believe what had happened, and began wailing over the lifeless body. Vanessa was more worried about Mr. Paralan, but he calmed her, admitting he had drunk only water. She was glad the trouble had passed them, but Oscar did not think so and explained that nothing was simple here. Ivanov's grandmother, still swearing, approached and asked who dared cause this grief. Her mind clouded by anger, she pointed at Oscar, stating that her granddaughter had been ruined by this son of the anger of the Russians was clearly not fading. Vanessa explained to Oscar they should leave, but the grandmother was not letting anyone go. She snapped her fingers, summoning guards, two gorilla-like men armed with huge machine guns. Ivanov ordered them to immediately find and capture all the wine suppliers, thinking they were involved, and stated that none of those present would leave until the suppliers were found. Meanwhile, Adam, waiting for his superiors, read a book whose murder plot seemed banal to him. He remembered it had a 4-star rating on the sales site, but the driver disagreed. In the banquet hall, guests began to protest that Ivanov had no right to detain them, especially since mobile communication had been cut off. Vanessa understood this was the gang's castle, and in this situation, they held all the power. Mr. Paralan asked if she had brought any weapons. She only had a satellite phone. She recalled when she and Cody had hidden in a house and lost contact. This was no mere line break, and she had learned to play it safe. She considered using the phone now, but Oscar advised saving it for emergencies. Grandmother Ivanov noticed their whispered conversation and accused them of knowing something, ordering her thugs to seize them both. Oscar explained he was only discussing his suspicions and doubted the poison was in all the glasses. One bandit produced test strips and said their glasses were clean. Madame Colt admitted she had also drunk a whole glass but felt no effects yet. Another bandit noted only 2 glasses were poisoned, with traces on the rims. Ivanov realized it was an attempt on both her granddaughters and ordered a search of everyone. Oscar was the primary suspect, and Ivanov ordered him searched first. Vanessa defended him, prepared to fight if necessary. Oscar told her to calm down. He had nothing to hide and was not afraid of any search. Madame Colt raised her hands in agreement, stating they were ready for inspection. The triad wondered if Ivanov would let them go afterward, but she was furious and only hissed that she would consider what to do next. The Russian gangsters began searching guests. When it was Briscoe's turn, they found a hidden weapon. Ivanov decided he might have carried poison too, but he objected, saying she could not blame them without proof. He added that everyone knew poison was a favored weapon of the Russians, implying the whole thing was an inside job. Vanessa realized everything was deliberately set up and began suspecting others. She consulted Mr. Paralan, explaining the situation was similar to a previous one involving a man who pretended to be a trusted relative but turned out to be a traitor. Oscar's frightened face appeared before his sons, confirming this was a mafia game with few or no rules. The key was knowing who was involved because much depended on it. Katya's sister continued to wail, sobbing that her sister had never done such a thing. Vanessa guessed the Russian girls were not the target, especially with Ivanov's grandmother present. The attempt was on little Ises and innocent civilians. Someone wanted to sow chaos, and this method was perfect. Colt and his man were also trying to figure out the culprit, thinking it was someone with nothing to lose. But Madame Colt was cautious, recalling she had made a mistake once before. Bandits reported to Ivanov that no poison was found on anyone else, so everyone became suspects. Then a frightened chef was dragged in, swearing innocence and begging for mercy. Ivanov stood over him like a rabid demon, saying he had one chance to confess who poisoned her granddaughter. He trembled with fear, repeating he knew nothing. Vanessa considered possible suspects. Suddenly, a shot rang out, a bullet piercing the chef's head. His body collapsed to the floor. Ivanov ordered everyone kept in separate rooms, with no one allowed in or out without her command. Mr. Paralan and Vanessa were taken to another room. On the way, Vanessa kept looking around. Once inside, Oscar offered to search the room. Vanessa agreed it was a good idea. He tried the windows but found they wouldn't open, they were decorative. Vanessa noticed a ventilation hole near the floor. Mr. Paralan was sure he couldn't climb through, and Vanessa did not suggest fleeing this way, but she checked for listening devices. Oscar doubted the Russians would besiege their own castle, but Vanessa recalled the murder might have been planned by the Russians, and the gang had intended to detain them from the start. She was certain everything was arranged deliberately, possibly even by Ivanov herself. Vanessa searched every corner and baseboard. Mr. Paralan worried about his cell phone, which had not been taken. Vanessa knew the gangsters were overconfident in their jammers. She could not call Adam, whose phone was probably muted too, though contacting Nick was possible. Oscar worried calling for reinforcements would escalate the conflict. Vanessa suggested waiting until the Russians found the culprit. Suddenly, Oscar turned his head away, embarrassed. Vanessa realized he was hiding something. He said coming here was a huge mistake he had made. Vanessa reassured him, saying no one could have foreseen this. Still, Oscar's worry didn't stop. Vanessa sensed he knew more and pressed him. He admitted he couldn't do anything about it. Vanessa reminded him she couldn't help unless he shared his plans. Oscar insisted he had no plan but looked guilty. She got no more answers and resumed probing the walls for bugs. After a pause, Oscar admitted he'd learned something about his Uncle Johnny, who had warned him not to come. He knew something but hadn't explained. Oscar said he was likely just paranoid. Then a terrible thought struck him: if Ivanov found out Uncle Johnny might be involved in the murder, both he and Vanessa would be killed. Vanessa did not deny this possibility but vowed to find a way out. Oscar thought she would find a secret door, and she confirmed an old lock with modern mechanisms. They suspected the old parts were preserved but hidden behind new walls. Vanessa pulled out her phone and asked if Oscar remembered the art gallery incident. He did but doubted repeating it now was wise. It might break or make the situation but offered a chance to escape unnoticed. Oscar agreed but said it would break a rule he disliked. Vanessa explained that if Oscar couldn't call, she was ready to do it herself. She briefly wondered if Oscar had already called but dismissed the thought. She said she would distract the others and told Oscar to prepare to run. He was ready but wouldn't leave without her, which surprised Vanessa but made her glad. She had no intention of staying in this gang's house, especially dead, then she could no longer help Cody. Vanessa prepared the phone. Oscar took her finger and pressed the call button. She noticed the situation change radically. Meanwhile, a boy's phone vibrated with an unknown number. He was dining and thought about ignoring it, but curiosity made him answer. It was the inspector. Vanessa asked how he felt about anonymous calls. Adam continued reading his book, overwhelmed by emotions, even swearing a little. Only 3 chapters remained, but the plot was still intense and unlikely to end soon. Finishing, the driver was shocked. He hadn't expected the book to end so abruptly with a note about a sequel. Just then, a knock on the window startled him. Pressing against the glass, he saw Vanessa's face and, still frightened, asked what was happening. Vanessa and Mr. Paralan entered the cabin. Oscar reproached the driver for not locking the doors. The driver admitted Vanessa had forced him, and she was glad to be right again. The driver asked for an explanation, noticing the other guests were still inside. He guessed the two had a reason for coming but didn't know what. For a moment, he thought they had just run away like 2 doves, which he wanted. But he decided trouble was more likely and was disappointed his plan had failed. Oscar calmed him, explaining the gang had sealed the castle inside and out but they escaped via old service staircases. Vanessa was sure no cameras caught them but they could check their room anytime. Outside, a searchlight scanned the yard where their car was parked, as if looking for fugitives. Vanessa hadn't noticed, focused on what to do next. Oscar saw the light approaching and shouted for Vanessa to duck. He ordered Adam to behave naturally. Adam opened his book in fright, holding it upside down. It happened quickly. Vanessa was shocked as Oscar pressed her against the car seat. The searchlight passed over each car, including theirs, moving on. Vanessa remembered the center gate. Adam confirmed he could see it well. The girl didn't know if it was closed but said they needed to clean up quickly. The driver looked at the couple's posture and hesitated to enjoy the view but their angry looks made him promise to get them out. Looking at the gate, Oscar saw it was impenetrable metal with electric wiring, making the task difficult. Vanessa wasn't sure she could hack it without a computer. Adam told them not to worry and to stay put, preparing for his finest hour. A mysterious grin appeared on his face, making Vanessa more worried, unsure what he planned. Suddenly, the driver slammed the accelerator, tires screeching. The car rushed forward. Vanessa could barely hold on, not wearing a seatbelt. The car sped through the air toward the gate. Oscar held Vanessa tightly to protect her, guessing Adam intended to ram the gate with the bumper. She doubted it would work. The driver swerved just before the gate, jumping onto the lawn and driving through a hedge fence. He laughed at the wasted money on the gate and lack of a proper fence. Oscar said he would kill the driver. Vanessa thought it better to delete all info about him from the internet first. Adam was glad they broke through, watching Oscar and Vanessa regain composure, both excited and blushing. Oscar told the driver to get them out of there. Meanwhile, Cody played console games with his temporary bodyguards, deftly outplaying Anna. Nick joked that she was getting better, which might upset Adam. The boy offered Anna a rematch. Nick teased his partner again when a phone rang. Mr. Paralan answered and told the caller they wouldn't be home by midnight. The caller was wary. Oscar explained they missed the last train and asked about his son. Oscar hoped the kid was already asleep. Nick decided not to reveal Cody's whereabouts, recalling he was once a child too. He told Oscar Cody passed out almost immediately. Trying to hold the phone so the boy's screams couldn't be heard, he explained to his boss that his son would definitely be upset if he didn't return in time for the morning. Oscar assured them they should make it back on time and asked Nick to stay ready with Anna. Mr. Paralan didn't hide from his subordinate that tonight they had made new enemies. Meanwhile, one of the bandits reminded grandmother Ivanova it was time to return. She hobbled with a stick to the roof exit. Several ambulances and police were already gathered at the main gate. The bandit asked what to do with the other family heads, but Ivanova decided the police would handle them. Other gangsters dragged Ivanova's surviving granddaughter, who shouted that it was unacceptable to leave her sister's body there. The grandmother ordered her to be quiet or she would throw her off the roof herself. They approached the helicopter that had just arrived for the gang's escape. A bandit reported that the car that had left belonged to the Paralan family. Ivanova turned angrily and hissed that those scoundrels would pay for everything that happened tonight. Don Johnny received a call from his nephew and was glad he had escaped the situation. He assumed Oscar was already on his way home and wanted to ask for details, but Mr. Paralan demanded an explanation of what his uncle had done to cause this. Johnny corrected him, saying they had done it together. The nephew insisted otherwise. Johnny told him to calm down, assuring he didn't want to drag Oscar into it, and asked him to promise that in future they would not be involved. Mr. Paralan insisted the gang considered them guilty and admitted he had miscalculated Johnny's influence. Oscar believed he should have been expanding their business, not endangering them. Johnny invited him to Albuquerque that evening, but he couldn't come, which angered the uncle. Oscar promised to be there the next morning, calming Johnny, who then ordered him to leave his footman in Chicago more an order than a request. Mr. Paralan didn't argue. After the call, he asked Adam to drop him at the station, having changed plans. The driver immediately turned the car around for the new destination. Vanessa realized Oscar wouldn't be home soon. Oscar asked her to apologize to Cody for him, confusing the girl because she knew it would upset the child waiting so much for his father. She took Oscar's hand to support him, seeing he was upset, and explained his son would understand. Oscar objected Cody was too young, but Vanessa assured him he was doing what he had to in order to protect his son, which must come first. Paralan stared intently as she added that everything else should remain in the background. It seemed to help, and Vanessa promised to care for Cody until his father returned. They rode in silence, each lost in thought, both clearly remembering that evening. Before arriving at the station, Mr. Paralan admitted he relied on Vanessa's words. Their car did not arrive until the next morning just before dawn. Adam parked near the entrance. Someone was hiding around the corner as if waiting for this particular car. The driver planned to return the car later, but Vanessa worried if he'd be able to drive after a sleepless night. Adam told her not to worry. The nanny's care was more necessary for the little boss upstairs. She knew he was right but also knew Cody would be very upset. She thought about how to calm him. She assumed the boy was probably still asleep, although they had promised to wake him to say goodnight. Suddenly, someone's hand reached for her neck from behind, but Vanessa immediately reacted, pushing the stranger's hand away as if she had eyes in the back of her head. The next moment she grabbed the hand, realizing it was likely an ill-wisher she needed to handle. She prepared to break a limb, but then a familiar voice screamed. The girl realized it was not a stranger but Madame Colt, who looked upset but glad her arm wasn't broken. Vanessa realized the lady was in a hurry, having arrived earlier, though it was unclear how she had escaped the police. The Frenchwoman recalled the police were under her control, and the nanny remembered recent events. Vanessa was confused until Madame Colt said she needed their help. The girl didn't know how she could help a mafioso, especially as she needed to return to her ward. Colt bowed her head, almost crying, confessing her son Clark had been kidnapped and she didn't know what to do. The news outraged Vanessa, who asked when and how it happened. A few hours ago, Madame Colt returned to find her men killed and her husband in critical condition. Clark was missing, kidnapped. She sobbed, lamenting the boy had nothing to do with this, that she had kept him away from the business, yet he was taken anyway. Vanessa understood her suspicions were correct. Someone was targeting heirs of large criminal families. Colt had already warned them to look for Clark in every major city but had no further strength. She feared if he was moved abroad, she might lose him forever, the worst-case scenario. Vanessa guessed it was the same people who came for Cody and the gang. Suddenly, it dawned on her that these people were not interested in fleeing. This only boded ill. She asked Madame Colt to calm down, explaining they might already be nearby. The Frenchwoman understood and, knowing Vanessa's abilities, her face shifted to anger. She didn't care if they found only Clark's body or the kidnappers and begged Vanessa to find her son and those who took him. The girl didn't know if she could help, as she worked for Mr. Paralan. Madame Colt knew this but now refused to agree with him because he wasn't answering her calls. Vanessa explained he was likely on a plane and they would talk once he landed. Madame Colt couldn't calm down. Clark had no time for her to pretend to be just a nanny. With bitterness in her eyes, she again asked Vanessa because she protected Cody and could ask Oscar's permission. The Frenchwoman was sure Oscar's son, learning of his friend's disappearance, would ask Vanessa to find him. Vanessa knew Madame was partly right but worried that if she explained the situation to Cody, different outcomes could happen. Cody valued his friend so much he might go searching himself. She told Madame that if it didn't interfere with protecting her ward, she was ready to help find Clark. Their conversation was interrupted by Nick, who sensed tension and asked if they needed help. The Frenchwoman was angry with him, but Vanessa assured Nick everything was fine and she was about to get up. Nick agreed but decided to stay a while longer to chat with the intruder. Vanessa tried to explain the woman was safe now, but Nick insisted the nanny should go upstairs to convince her to leave as soon as possible. He said Cody was waiting and she shouldn't stay long. At that moment, Cody sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket, waiting for his father and nanny's return. Much time had passed, and he was very worried, clutching a small duckling that helped calm him. Suddenly, footsteps sounded in the hallway. At first, Cody thought his father had returned, but sensing something was off, he rushed to the door, dropping the blanket. He overheard whispers, pressed his ear to the door, and heard Vanessa explaining to Anna that Mr. Paralan had gone to Albuquerque on Johnny's orders. Hearing this, Cody knew his suspicions were correct and something bad had happened. The nanny asked how he was. Anna assured all was well and no one had come or gone all evening. Vanessa breathed a sigh of relief but her colleagues noticed she was withholding something. She admitted she was worried about Clark. Upon hearing this, Cody became even more anxious, realizing something terrible had happened to his friend. Out of excitement, he dropped the duckling, not knowing what to do. He listened again, hoping his fears were unfounded. Vanessa confessed that Madame Colt's son had been kidnapped while they were at the meeting. Anna noted this was the second attempt on children of major criminal families in recent months. Vanessa said it was the third, since one of Ivanov's granddaughters had been killed last night. This worried Anna, who hoped the granddaughter wasn't brunette, which amused Vanessa. Vanessa worried more about telling Cody, as Clark was his best friend and he'd be very upset. Anna advised Vanessa to get some sleep, even though she had only a few hours to learn more. Vanessa disagreed, saying she had too much work to trade time for sleep. She decided to first make sure Cody was okay and headed to his room. Realizing he might be caught eavesdropping, Cody rushed to bed. When Vanessa opened the door, he lay under the covers, wrapped up, not moving. She noticed something was wrong and connected details. A blanket lying by the window looked suspicious, and a small duckling by the door confirmed her suspicion. She listened to Cody's breathing, deep but not loud. He was not asleep, only pretending, and probably heard everything. Vanessa did not scold him but sat on the bed and asked how much he heard. Cody did not answer, afraid, but tears filled his eyes. He couldn't hold back and rushed to Vanessa, who comforted him, promising his friend would be found. The boy couldn't believe it and sobbed, thinking Clark would never return. Vanessa wanted to promise otherwise but wasn't sure. She explained nothing was known yet and they had to wait for clarity. Cody screamed that missing people never come back. Vanessa understood his certainty. He cried, not understanding why loved ones kept disappearing. Vanessa hugged him tightly, trying to calm him. His crying made her sad. She knew if Clark was never found, Cody wouldn't recover easily. Wherever Clark was, he must calm down first, and Cody must know what happened to his mother. Vanessa decided to tell him before her work was done, even if it was the last thing she did. Later, Mr. Paralan was at baggage claim and called Vanessa. He asked how Cody was. She honestly said he was asleep beside her. Oscar asked her to keep an eye on him and said he'd received a message from Madame Colt. Vanessa admitted she had spoken to Madame Colt and now asked permission to help, but Oscar warned her not to insult herself or him, certain she had already started. Vanessa hesitated but knew he was right. She explained she had to continue while still caring for Cody, who might then be unprotected. Oscar said it was too late to worry about that and admitted he didn't know what would happen to Cody if Clark wasn't found. Vanessa confirmed his fears. Cody would be very upset and struggle to cope. Oscar didn't argue, just asked her to do what she did best and gave her full authority, which pleased Vanessa, as she already had ideas. At that moment, her laptop beeped. No matches were found in the search. Expecting this, she decided to try another method to find Clark. She called headmistress Barbara, asking for help, which worried the former nanny. Vanessa explained she wanted to use the academy's connections, but Barbara asked about her ward first. Vanessa assured Cody was safe. Barbara said she had to refuse as it was a personal request, but Vanessa explained it was about another child, Clark, who was in danger. This greatly concerned Barbara, who remembered the day she pulled Vanessa's ward out of the shaker. She told little Vanessa something that day but asked her to keep it secret.